So the question at that point, they couldn't understand. They were like, no, there has to be someone, there has to be a machinery, there has to be people that have paid for this. Granted, there might be people. People are known, people with interests in causing chaos in this country. But at the end of the day, new media showed its true power last year here in Kenya. Now we have a new ICT minister, and one of the things he said is that, hey, listen, should it come to it, we need to be able to put certain elements of control. We've seen a new ICT bill that's come out that seeks to spy on Kenyans. We can pay off people for headlines. We can shut them down because they have a physical space that they occupy. So we can shut them down. With new media, what do? You shut off the internet, correct? You arrest and abduct people that you think are behind certain mobilization, certain memes here and there. I believe you've seen the headlines. So now what we're seeing is a very deliberate crackdown on new media, and it's informed by a lack of understanding of how this machinery works.
I saw the protests. There is no government in the world that will see that and not be worried.
Denial is a river in Egypt. So if we sit and deny that corruption actually happens, then I'm sorry, we are not having a proper conversation. If anything, the conversation needs to start from this corruption happening. Are we going to be able to fight that mammoth of a thing?
When you were out on the street, did you think beyond just the bill? Because the bill, and the corruption is a combination of a system and a governance choice that has been made by Kenyans over the last 60 odd years.
Yeah. When the day comes, and, Kenya needs to be called out, we need to be called out, because then there's a self-righteousness that can creep up, that unfortunately becomes the very reflections. Like, you have these blinders, and I feel like as Kenya, starting with, again, the very top, coming down, there's a self-righteousness.
We are in Nairobi. I'm Sunny Nayombia, host of the Long Form Podcast. My team and I are in East Africa's richest city to speak directly to the people who make the city tick. Welcome to the Nairobi Conversations, a meeting place for African conversations led by African voices.
This is the very, very best. I introduce the very, very next. Big deal, this is the big league. Unsanga mumihanda ya chigari mega big fish. Word on the street turakaze. Habari gani mumeze mte. Yutse shimi mana kuva honda muchiye. If you want the long form, come close mrabure.
Wait, what? The long form.
What did he say?
The long form.
What?
The long form.
The long form. The long form. Hello there. Greetings from Nairobi. My guest this week on the Long Form Podcast is Fellaris Wambui, a radio host at Capital FM, where she co-hosts the popular 984 in the morning, as well as the financial forecast. Fellaris is a born storyteller. In this conversation, we shall discuss the future of radio in Africa, the new media global landscape, surviving the media credit crunch, the urgent need to highlight women's voices, and whether legacy media has the responsibility to push back against going viral. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to make a deal with you. About 69.5% of you who watched this very podcast haven't hit the subscribe button yet. So, here's the deal I want to make with you. If you hit that subscribe button today, I promise you that my team and I will keep making the show better and better in every single way. So, go ahead and hit that subscribe button today. And now, let's get into the show. Fellaris,
What's up?
welcome to the Long Form.
Thank you.
Do you do podcasts often?
Actually, no. The last time I sat to do a podcast-like thing like this was years back.
Why?
I don't know why I've shied away from podcasts. Not really shying away, but I've not really put my mind to it to maybe even do my own kind of podcast because I know I'm going to get there, but I just need the clarity to know exactly what it is I'm going to be talking about because there's a lot of podcasts nowadays.
But and is it, that's the thing with our media space, right? Is it maybe because, you're really comfortable with your radio?
Ooh, good question. Actually, there might be an element of comfort then because you're in front of a mic every single day and you're speaking to an audience. So that can somewhat make you very comfortable. In my case, maybe it made me very comfortable to not really explore the option of having something else that is attached to Fellaris's brand and not so much the work that I do on radio. But I have something that I've been thinking about.
Let's hear it.
So just recently, I started publishing like my thoughts and reflections on social. I call it From My Mind to Yours. Just really picking out different things. Could be critical thinking, could be, I don't know, things that I find we struggle with now as a people and putting my thoughts behind that. And if I were to do a podcast, it would definitely be in that sort of direction. Something more reflective and something that speaks to the entirety of things that we struggle with as human beings when it comes to this. Yeah.
I think what you're trying to do with those thoughts, that it's almost sounds like a little like blog.
Yeah.
Right? It's very bloggish.
It's very bloggish.
I think it's the right direction because when I see what the future holds for our industry, which is media. I'm worried that in 15 years, maybe 20 years, the work that you do hosting a very popular morning show every day, that job might disappear because what I'm seeing is that people are moving away from the mass consumption of media and picking and choosing what they want to hear when they want to hear it.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Because we live in a very interesting time as human beings because the options are endless. And if certain subjects appeal to you, then you have the choice. You just go on to whatever podcasting platform, whatever YouTube channels that speak to those particular conversations, and that's what you choose to consume, as opposed to traditional media that then would have all of this blurb around so many different things, and you're forced to listen to it whether or not everything appeals to you. So I do agree with you.
How long do you think radio survives? In Africa?
In Africa, I would still say that radio potentially, without looking at your urban population, because then your urban population is the one that's really spoiled with choice. But radio has a fighting chance in Africa, but we have to find that sweet spot where it becomes, there's a hybrid model to radio that has to be embraced across Africa, across the world.
Which is
the intersection between digital platforms and traditional radio, and where you have the intersection of social media and the part it plays when it comes to radio, podcasting when it comes to radio, streaming when it comes to radio, and the traditional setup of radio by itself. It has to adapt to a hybrid model. How that hybrid model looks like is what we should be thinking about right now. A lot of people are attempting it. I will tell you, even here in Kenya, I've seen different media houses find a way of integrating the podcasting, just being visible in that space and to those audiences, and then to the traditional audiences. Is it working? I would say yes and no, because again, nobody has a formula right now. We are all kind of just trying to see what works and then run with it. So everybody is sort of like in this space where they're trying to figure it out. We are also trying to figure it out.
No, I'm worried that at some level, we're like the people who owned horses, and there was a man who then Henry Ford is creating the car. And you're just trying to say, you know what? I'm trying to I'll try to figure out how to make the horse and buggy, as comfortable as possible. But the car is coming.
It is.
And I'm worried that radio, print, television, I don't think we have a lot of time. I actually worry
the clock
that...
is ticking fast.
Yeah, because I'll give you an example. Right now, people in the urban, our urban centers, so the Kigalis, the Nairobis, the Kampalas, are, what they listen to is Spotify, right? So the people in the rural areas are still with their little transistor radios trying to listen, or they're using now their little phones. 10 years from now, smartphones will be so cheap, and data will probably be free.
It's going to be free.
Right? Then because already we've seen what happens when people have choice in the city. They don't, to be honest, I haven't listened to radio in years.
Oh.
Why would I? I go in my car, I listen to a podcast. Or I get on my Spotify, I listen to the music I want to listen to.
Correct.
There's no one else who's gatekeeping my interests. I'm not looking for a Fellaris on Capital FM to make sure that she plays the music I like.
That you like, yeah.
No. And very often, Fellaris probably also has a podcast.
That she listens to.
No. That she does. That's the way it should be, right?
Yeah.
Like, you should actually have a podcast. So if I really want to listen to her thoughts, I know where to find them.
Yeah.
So then what else are you delivering to me as a product? It's music and ads.
Very true.
Do you want a world-class German education in Rwanda for your kids? Well, then take a listen. Ntare LouisenLund International School in Bugesera delivers a top STEM curriculum from Germany that is designed for science, maths, and technology learners. With German language classes starting in grade 8, Ntare LouisenLund International School gives your child a direct path to top, affordable universities in Europe. Graduates join an elite alumni network with access to global careers and internships, so why send them abroad? It's a waste of your hard-earned money. So visit www.ntarelouisenlund.org to learn more. Scan the QR code that you see on the screen or click on the link in the description.
But also, here's the thing. Maybe what we need to look at is what was radio before? What role did radio play before? All of these media forms that you've mentioned, traditional media forms, like your legacy media, print, radio, telly, before the onset of new media. What space did they occupy? Educate, inform, entertain. Correct? So now, if you're to break it down in those pillars, then you take away, entertainment, which there's endless options. Yeah, we don't need gatekeepers to those things. Information. Nowadays, touch of a button, X. We literally, news cycles are running based on what we see on X way before. So we don't have to wait for 7 o'clock primetime news to see what we've already seen on X. And the last pillar was educate, entertain, inform. Now, education part of it, we have podcasts that occupy that space. So literally, you've stripped away everything. But here's the thing. There are certain conversations around certain things, because then let's look at what is packaged mostly in legacy media: politics, policy, and maybe I wouldn't sports, neither here nor there, but I want to focus on these two: policy and politics, which again we tend to consume in bite-sized chunks from platforms like X. Doesn't give you the full breadth of what's happening. So maybe there's an opportunity there. There's still a gap that is left that legacy media can occupy. But the challenge comes in here. and I speak as a millennial and somebody that sees where legacy media fails, is that, are you really packaging this information with truth? If you're going to bring me information on politics and fill that gap that I'm not able to see within 140 characters on X, do you have truth packaged in it? Or are you just giving me a screaming headline that is so sensational that is devoid of truth? So the dissection of legacy media, I think, has to continue going through those ventricles that I've mentioned, is that there's a gap. I could listen to a podcast, no problem. But does it quite address the things that I need to know when it comes to policy making? Like in Kenya, you did see our Gen Z protest last year. That in itself is something that if we did not have legacy media and we're only looking at new media, there's so much that we could not, there's a lot of information that we couldn't access from these spaces. So the challenge comes in there. Have we figured it out? Again, legacy media is trying to see how best can we fill this gap. And as we go on, maybe I'll tell you ways that I've seen that have been tried out.
No, I'm interested because when I back home, our legacy media is dying, right? Our papers, we don't have papers anymore, right? The print costs became way too high, so all of them now became online newspapers.
Okay. With paywalls? Or just free?
No, they're free.
Oh.
Right? Our television, well, we've only kind of continued with, there's a few, but they're not growing the way they should grow. So that's our conversation. Like, okay, how do we keep them from properly dying?
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, I think they just need to go. You got, like, I think in Kenya though, yours have such deep roots. They can die, and the ivy, the roots that hold onto this building, they'll hold on.
Completely. The very foundations of legacy media in this country would not allow for those institutions to die. It's a good and a bad thing. Good thing in this sense that, actually, let me start with the bad side of things. Not to be a pessimist, but those roots are so entrenched in power. Yeah, you find legacy media in this country is owned by very, very powerful people. People that have the ability to control a lot of things, including the very headlines that are consumed in this country. Yeah, we have sitting presidents, former and current, that own media houses, shares in media houses. So it works for them because then you have a piece of thing. In Kenya, owning media is you having so much control over a lot of things you'd want to see. Helps you to hold on to that power, helps you bring down enemies, works to your advantage. So there's no way they would allow for this to die. Now the scary part comes in here. They see the threat of new media. They saw it last year. The Gen Z protests, literally the anti-finance bill, the information circulation, the mobilization, and the people taking the streets, all of that happened on social. There was no particular meeting point. There was no phone calls. There was no what. People just literally, those distribution of information was at a very crazy scale, a scale like none we'd ever seen. And on June 25th, when we hit the streets, I was on the streets on June 25th.
Why?
I felt the need to be on the streets because it didn't make sense that as a country, we were being given this finance bill that would see us, the cost of living is already so crazy. So now you have punitive taxes that would come and even sink us deeper into struggle. Already, people are not doing well financially. And I know you're going to ask how, and I'm seeing there's so much money in this city. We'll get to that. But the threat to legacy media became very visible and very clear and evident in June last year. with a kind of coordination, mobilization that saw people take the streets. So the question at that point, they couldn't understand. They were like, no, there has to be someone, there has to be a machinery, there has to be people that have paid for this. Granted, there might be people. People are known, people with interests in causing chaos in this country. But at the end of the day, new media showed its true power last year here in Kenya. No, what did they do? That same evening, we couldn't access platforms like X. And so big organizations were thrown into this. Like, yeah, they've shut the internet, but they came out and said, no, the undersea cable's cut. So who's lying? You know, that became the big question. Now we have a new ICT minister. And one of the things he said is that, hey, listen, should it come to it, we need to be able to put certain elements of control. We've seen a new ICT bill that's come out that seeks to spy on Kenyans. So you see, new media is attracting so much attention that there's question of how do we control this before it gets out of hand. The focus is not even on legacy media now. Is that this we have an element of control because
And we understand, and
we
it's
understand
ours.
It's ours.
Yeah.
We can do brown envelope journalism here. We can pay off people for headlines. We can shut them down because they have a physical space that they occupy. So we can shut them down. With new media, what do? You shut off the internet, correct? You arrest and abduct people that you think are behind certain mobilization, certain memes here and there. I believe you've seen the headlines. So now what we're seeing is a very deliberate crackdown on new media, and it's informed by a lack of understanding of how this machinery works.
Because I don't understand the crackdown on new media, because new media is not it's a platform. It's people.
Correct. It's people.
So you're gonna crack down on who?
That's
The girl doing a TikTok, the young man who's doing. I mean,
people voicing their opinion. When did that become illegal? And here's the thing, yeah. The thing that makes me very happy being Kenyan is this: we have a very progressive constitution that really allows us certain freedoms that had never been enjoyed in Kenya, well, before the new constitution was promulgated, but also in other countries within Africa. They actually come and benchmark. There's a lot of people that are like, yeah, your constitution is far ahead of so many other republics within your continent. Just the other day, we had a lady, Rose Njeri, who was arrested by 15 men. Very chill girl, arrested by 15 men for coming up with a Chrome extension for public participation on the finance bill for this year. So you see, they're already starting to crack down on people because they want to prevent a situation like last year's. But why the fear is what we are asking. So
I mean, the fear is, I saw the protests. There is no government in the world that will see that and not be worried. So when you, I mean, if I'm, every so often, right, it's good to kind of think, okay, if I was on the other side and I saw this, how would I react?
Before we continue, if you live in Kigali, what do you do to stay strong and healthy? Do you want to get fit without breaking the bank? If you are like me and the answer is a resounding yes, join Waka Fitness, Kigali's top fitness hub with expert-led workouts in a state-of-the-art facility, high-end equipment, and an unbeatable community vibe. And here's the best part. As a listener of this podcast, you get 20% off your membership. The thing is, this deal ends in August. So just hit the link in the description, www.waka.fitbase.rw/thelongform, or scan the QR code on your screen. Join Waka today. Get strong, feel good, and live life abundantly.
What was the reaction of people watching
In Rwanda?
Rwanda?
So there was different aspects, right? So there was the curious, what's going on? Then there were those who were like, and I had conversations with friends, and our thinking was that they're protesting
what they, the young people are protesting the very lifeblood of their nation. They're protesting corruption. They're protesting mismanagement. But that's just been from the days of the British, right? The powerful have
just
moved.
start now.
No, it's cultural. It's how we do business. It's benefited generations of people, and it's been really just what makes Kenya Kenya. So, and the debts that were taken to build the things that they were supposed to build, and the corruption, and I'm like, but this is just how you guys have been doing business for decades.
So
why are you
why are you
crying
protesting
now?
now?
Your fathers ate that money.
You're beneficiaries of this very same corruption.
What are you talking about? Right? So for me, it was like, okay. On one side, I was like, yes. But on the other side, I was like, this did not happen in a vacuum. Right? Them saying that we want to increase taxes did not happen in a vacuum. It was obviously going to be a very unpopular move. There's no government in the world that increases taxes and everyone's like, yay.
Yay.
No.
More taxes.
No one likes it. But on the other side, I'm like, well, the chickens have just come home to roost. You enjoyed, built an amazing expressway. I enjoyed it. Right?
You've been on it.
I was driving from the airport to where I'm staying, and it's very impressive. And I was looking around. I came in at night, right? So
it
my
must have looked so beautiful.
it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It reminded me of Beijing, and it was like, oh, this is really nice. The chickens just came home to roost. You enjoyed the money.
Oh,
now it's time to pay for the money. Why are you crying now?
So there's a current petition in court by one senator, Okiya Omtata. Some people are calling him the sixth. Very sober mind. The petition in court is on odious debt that Kenya has accrued in the last two administrations and the current administration. Yes. Talking about an entire loan that was stolen and just.
I mean, it wasn't stolen. It was dispersed to the people. It was.
They borrowed money.
Yes.
And when these are the
Who's
paper
they?
trail. Government.
No. Government is men and women.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
The people
Yes.
in government. Let's talk about that.
Yes.
So like in this situation, it's a previous administration of Uhuru Kenyatta and our current president, who was the deputy
Vice.
president at the time. So a loan was borrowed and
To do what?
it's for whatever reason, like they borrow loans for development, correct? But in this case, this loan did not, it was redirected, and redirected to accounts in different countries, different parts of the world. And just yesterday, we've seen central bank, and I wish I had the correct figures to what they totaled the odious debt to. And central bank did come and say these are very serious allegations and unconstitutional. So we definitely have an interest in this petition. So when we see such things as Kenyans who took to the streets on June 25th and lost our comrades, God rest their souls, when you see such like things, you're like, maybe justice is going to be served, because the cry out right now to Gen Zs and the young Kenyans is justice. We just want to see people pay for everything that they've done, for us to stop paying for debt that we did not take. They used the name of the country, they used the name of the republic to get this debt, but in the real sense, they themselves pocketed the money. So they need to be held accountable.
I mean, someone could say that they shared it with you.
How?
You see all these buildings? Someone was working on them.
So here's the
Oh.
thing, yeah, they worked on them, but a portion of it went into it. Another thing that
No, I mean, you, it was. I think it was Yoweri Museveni. He was talking about corruption, and he was talking about, and so one of his inspector generals of government wanted to do lifestyle audits of ministers and senior government civil servants, and the president said, "My dear, be careful, go slow, because when they steal money from government, they're not at least they're not taking it out. They are reinvesting it in hotels, malls, apartments, businesses. The money is flowing.
It's circulating. But you know, in Kenya, if that were the case, the situation would be very different. So here's the thing. Thank God I do a show called Financial Focused every Tuesday. So interacting with all manner of material when it comes to money matters, something that we do. So last year, there was a report that came out that said that corruption money from Africa, and this is in the context of Africa, yeah, and then we brought it back to Kenya, is not being used to develop Africa. If anything, now they've seen an increase of it being stashed abroad. Yeah.
It's because you guys are protesting. You see, if you
Rightfully so.
If you had let them steal the money in peace,
then maybe, just maybe. We even saw our own Treasury CS come out and say that, you know, maybe we need to look at how can this corruption money be invested here. And everybody was up in arms. Everybody was so upset. It's like, how dare you? It's like, denial is a river in Egypt. So if we sit and deny that corruption actually happens, then I'm sorry, we are not having a proper conversation. If anything, the conversation needs to start from this corruption happening. Are we going to be able to fight that mammoth of a thing? Right now, it's an uphill task. But I hear you when you say that maybe the money needs to be reinvested here.
Actually, that's what I thought.
We are beneficiaries of that seed money. In Nairobi, we keep saying that wash money is what is building malls. You know, and they are building malls, and we are like, okay, maybe you should use that money to build stadiums, build sports arenas. Rwanda, you have the Bickering Arena, which is spectacular. I wish we had something similar here. Then maybe it would make sense. It's like, oh, maybe we'd turn the other cheek and say, okay, maybe.
They use the wash money.
Yeah. It's painful, but at least it's benefiting us.
It's helping us.
It's helping us. You know, there has to be sense in how this money is being spent. I'm not advocating for corruption, but there has to be sense. We really cannot be building malls every 2 square miles. It's like you move 2 kilometers, there's a mall.
That's true.
Why are you building those malls for? If people are not spending money and coming into those malls to shop, then it's useless to anybody. But conversation on corruption in this continent is definitely something that we need to find ways, whether it's policies, laws. In Kenya currently, there's a there's a bill that's stuck at the Senate on, curbing corruption when it comes to public officers. It's stalled, literally. It was supposed to be out of there in 2 weeks. They've now asked for 45 days. Tells you the enthusiasm to fight corruption is not there.
Do you think democracy can work in Africa?
Can I just tell you I don't believe in democracy?
I mean...
I don't believe in democracy.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you've really said, you started with we have the best constitution.
Oh yeah, we do. It's very progressive.
It's so nice.
It allows me to sit here and talk.
We have, we have our presidents and our, cabinet secretaries, and we have our senates. And now you're telling me that a bill that is needed is dying a slow death.
Stuck.
Not stuck. Because when you say stuck, it almost seems passive. No, it's been blocked.
Yeah, it's been blocked. Exactly.
Let's call it what it is. It's blocked. Because of the systems.
Correct.
And so I'm curious to know, when you were out on the street,
Mm-hmm.
did you think beyond just the bill? Because the bill, and the corruption is a culmination of a system and a governance choice that has been made by Kenyans over the last 60 odd years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you guys who are out on the street think about, we need to change the fundamentals of this? We can't do window dressing. Yes, let's even imagine they win the case and there's that odious debt, and a couple of politicians are being told to pay it back. They probably won't, probably because they spent it or it's way too much.
Yeah.
But that's not fundamentally changing what underpins everything.
I agree with you.
So when you guys were out in the streets, did you actually have conversations of being like, yo, we need to tear everything down and then rebuild it?
So the anti-finance bill, I mean the protests were just but a representation of the bigger agenda. And the agenda of the people that took the streets, myself included, is protesting a regime that is rooted and anchored in so much rot. And this is rot that didn't just begin with it. It goes all the way back. So it
to
was
the foundings
dressed,
of the Kenyan Republic,
correct,
I believe.
to the very foundations of this country. So it was just dressed as an anti-finance bill, but at the very core of it was a cry and a push for an entire cleanse of what Kenya is, a cleanse of the systems that we now, because today it's this person, tomorrow another person comes in, and unfortunately they find the very same systems that there's continuity in whatever it is that's ailing us as a country.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
as you said,
yeah.
the politicians, old politicians own the media, they own the means of production.
They own us.
Yeah.
So the accompanying hashtag to the finance bill protest was Ruto must go. But you see, this is not just about him. It's about him and the political class. And when the question came in, it's like, okay, fine, these people go, who do you want in?
I mean, that's a fair question.
It's a very fair question, and a question that is still being asked right now. The response has been, you just know we want all of you gone. Whoever it is that we just want people that are clean, untouched, and people we've not seen or heard. So then this becomes the challenge that I see in this demand. It's not a fight that is going to end tomorrow. It's not a fight that's going to end at the polls come 2026. This is just the beginning of a cleanse that is happening in Kenya. And the true test is going to come when we go to the polls in 26.
Why?
The true test will come at that point because how ready are we to start initiating the change that we keep asking for, correct? These people are going to be on the ballot. They're going to be there. They're not going to vanish, including the very president that people are crying must go. Yeah. And right now he's even embraced it and he's like, yeah, it's okay. You all can nickname me all these things. But the true test is going to come down to the polls. There's an apathy that Kenyans have had, especially young Kenyans, myself included, I won't lie. Previous election cycle, I didn't vote. I just felt like I didn't have options. And it was a situation of damned if I do, damned if I don't. So I decided to be apathetic, didn't go to the polls. This time around, I will make sure I'm the first one because I would rather a situation where I'm going in, voting, and knowing that at least I showed up and stood up to be counted. And I'm seeing that translate across a lot of the young people. Where apathy once stood, now people are like, no, the change has to come from us. And that's why I'm saying 2026, the next election, is going to be the true test to see, can you put your money where your mouth is? When you say you want change, change comes by the leaders you vote in, correct? Change comes by leaders standing up to be counted. There's a reason why some of us ended up leaving the comforts of private sector to come into media, because we feel there's something that needs to be done, which is using our voices. We can no longer rely on the voices that have always been there, have since been compromised. I'm not saying everybody is compromised, but there's been people, yeah? But we all have to step up and play our role in one way or another.
I'm really interested in knowing, like you're talking, right? And I'm listening to you, and everything's sounds so good. But I always worry about, everyone wants to go to heaven. No one wants to die.
Yeah.
No one wants to actually pay the price of the thing that you want. Right? You say you want a changed country.
Yeah.
Are you willing to pay the price? Right? You say that you want a fair system. Are you sure that you want to be driving and are stopped by a police officer because you're overspeeding and are going to be fined? I don't know what the fines are. Let's say 100 Kenyan shillings. I don't know what the fines are for speeding. Let's imagine 100 Kenyan shillings.
Yeah.
Are you willing to pay the 100 Kenyan shillings versus giving him maybe 20 to let you go? Are you willing to do all those things, which is actually fundamentally the price that you have to pay to change things?
For the change that we want. I would tell you absolutely yes. And can I tell you the biggest indicator of that? And what really shocked
And maybe that's
me
not
into
just
my-
you, but the entire,
exactly.
like a society.
And even removing myself out of this and just speaking to the society. What we saw last year is people that are ready to sacrifice themselves for country. People that are ready to stand up and be counted. That for me was such a big indicator that this change is something that people are ready for. People are ready to pay the price that comes with that. So where that takes us is, may God continue guiding us, because then we don't know. We have an uphill task ahead of us. We are faced with systems that, again, like I said, so powerful that we do not even understand the extent of that power. Well, until that power comes to us and we see just how it's able to met itself on us. I mean, the senseless killing of young people who just come to protest with
It's not senseless. It's not senseless. No.
What do you mean?
No. Political violence, you can say it was a wrong killing. It was an unjust killing. It's not senseless. Because then you remove the motive. You get what I'm saying? We like to use these words. There was a senseless killing. No, the sense was we are trying to intimidate you.
If you frame it that way, I see what you
get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The sense is we're trying to bring a chilling effect. The sense is we are trying to ensure that we keep control. That's what the sense is.
That you actually, we use fear as a tool, because then
100%. That's what governments do.
Yeah, but are Kenyans ready for change? Imagine, to answer your question, yes.
I don't know. I feel like you guys have been, you're the only East African country. Yes, literally. Even I was going to say, even between you and Tanzania, but even Tanzania was once invaded by Idi Amin.
Oh.
Right, in 1979.
At one point, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So literally, you're the only nation that has always been kind of like, you've never really tasted conflict.
And may God keep it that way.
You can't, but you see, that's the thing. I don't think you can have it both ways. I don't think that you can have the change that you want. Right? And
still maintain.
No. I was reading something. You know, I'm a Twitter guy. And I do not realize just how, you know, when you move from country to country, all of a sudden the algorithm starts sending you different things.
Correct.
And I don't know why they thought it was a good idea to send me something about land grabbing that happened on the onset of the Kenyatta, Jomo Kenyatta government, where they were giving out land and people were taking. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is decades of work. And these guys have just been building a system, and people have benefited, right? At different levels. And these are not just the middle managers, the lower managers, the Scotties, the to what it seems you're asking for. Like Rwanda, we had to go through a civil war and genocide to cleanse the ideology that existed, because the ideology did not want to. It never wants to give room.
Correct.
Why would it?
Benefits the people it does.
So
Does it have to come down to that kind of extreme? Whilst I understand that to move ideologies and to shift ideologies and to break it
and break power, the power.
power.
Those guys who you said their fingers, their toes are in everything. How do you break those? Without how?
I really
You're going to
agree
vote?
with you. It's like,
You're just going to vote?
do you know, it's
You're
the look
gonna
on your
vote?
face. It's like we're just gonna vote it away.
I mean, really? Have South Africa taught us nothing about power?
You see, I love history because then it gives us precedence to a lot of how things have worked in this world. There's nothing new under the sun. With empires that once existed and people being dethroned and whatever, there had to be a degree of the price paid was extreme.
Yeah.
Very extreme. And you know what worries me is that as Kenyans, we really have not come to that reality of how that would look like. I don't want to speak to it.
Which is weird
It's
because
like
you've gotten a little bit of a taste.
just exactly. It's just a small
and guess what?
piece of it.
What happened after? How long did they last?
Who?
Maybe the protests.
Oh, that went
Maybe,
on.
like what, 2 weeks?
It was a wave that took on. The cumulative wave, of course, came to an end on 25th. Then after that, there's just not been, because, again, the reality of what lies on the other side strikes you as a human being. I will tell you, on the very psyche of Kenyans who witnessed the events of June 25th, it shook us to the core.
Really?
Because then the reality of it is that, holy crap, people actually die. Resistance and fighting
will cause death.
Will cause death.
Yes.
There's bloodshed.
Which is funny, you're the country of Mau Mau.
Yeah. You know, when we think about our forefathers,
Yeah.
is that the struggle for independence in this country meant that we lost not one, not two, but to the hundreds. People were displaced. People lost their homes. There was a degree of loss, and not just a loss of property, but a loss of agency, a loss of lives. So the reality of this, yes, we have this, and I do agree with you, and I'm happy that we've actually circled to this reality, that maybe at the very core of us, we are yet to understand the price of freedom.
And talking about it, driving around Nairobi, when there's a lot of wealth, and there's a lot of business, and people are going about their day and their cars, and there is you know, as an outsider looking in, I'm like, you guys are doing well. You are fundamentally doing well. Right? So when we see you protesting and getting angry, we're like, come on, it's not that bad. You guys are, you know, we're in Two Rivers Mall, and there's Woolworths and, you know, the Apple store and a Carrefour, and everyone's shopping. It looks pretty good.
The optics of it look good, yeah?
I
call
mean,
it
not just the optics, not just the optics. You know, I come from a much smaller country. It's it's also fundamentals. It's not as bad as I think. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe I'm not seeing what
the true picture of it.
So maybe tell us what is the true picture?
I call it optics of Nairobi because it's almost like consuming Nairobi on social media. You'd get, or actually Instagram versus reality. Two very different kind of things, yeah. So Nairobi, yes, I agree with you, has this money. And the more I continue working in the space that I do, and the more I interact with people, the more I continue to see that we don't have a money problem in this country. If anything, we have a management issue in this country. The country is run, management of funds, because then we keep losing money left, right, and center. That's not
that's losing it.
It's like it's been stolen.
We're not losing money. It is somewhere.
It is somewhere. So here's the thing. Nairobi and Kenya at large has a very big percentage of unemployed youth. Yeah. Youth that have gone through proper education, but get to university level and are not able to access jobs, meaning they're not able to access income. Yeah. Whatever you've pointed out to, the malls, the buildings, the whatnot,
the cars,
they only represent a very small portion of the reality that is this city and this country. Very small percentage. It's very easy, by the way, for the optics to give you this illusion. And I'm happy because if an investor is coming to this city and they're able to see this, absolutely amazing. But the real danger that we have in this country is that we have so many people that remain unemployed. And even the ones that are employed are underpaid. So yes, there's the malls, but how many of them are able to actually come to the malls and spend? How many of them are actually able to afford from these stores? These stores would tell you at some point pre-COVID, they used to make bank. I used to work in marketing. So I would kind of have the numbers. Before COVID and during up until Uhuru's first term, money was circulating in this economy. Actually, during Kibaki's time, Kibaki was our third president, and Kenyans still term him as the best president we ever had. Money was circulating in this economy. Business was good. There was, for some reason, it's like, you had money to spend, you had money to save, and all of that. Now that has been on a decline to the point where we are right now.
Why?
It's and I'm not gonna blame it to COVID, because then every time the economic conversation is like, COVID, this, that. No, I think it's just we are experiencing the ripple effects of bad governance, bad decisions on policies in this country that are making it tougher and tougher and tougher to run businesses. And literally the only way to survive is to let go of people. We've seen media groups like, Standard Group, Radio Africa, having to let go of people. Are they letting go of people because they have so much money that they want to keep to themselves? They're letting go of people because amongst the realities that they're facing is that companies are not advertising. Organizations are cutting on spending. Why? Because when it comes to it, you have to make sure that you pay your salaries and you keep the lights on, correct? So you have to operate within very, very tight margins. How then can we make sure that these organizations don't shut down? There was a report that came from the Chamber of Commerce at the beginning of the year, and they were talking about, and also the Federation of Kenya Employers, they were talking about the number of companies that have shut down in the last year. Crazy numbers, yeah. That paints a picture of where the economy of Kenya currently is. Of course, government will come out and say, yeah, we are actually doing well. Our FX reserves are doing so well. Forget about that. What's the reality on the ground? The reality on the ground is this. Kenyans who are earning, salaried Kenyans who used to take home, say, 70% of their income, now are taking home less than 50% because of statutory deductions. What does that mean? You cannot spend on certain luxuries. And here I'm talking about your average Kenyan. Yeah. The 1% that, again, these malls are here for, and which is why we keep asking, why do we have so many malls? Who's spending in these malls? Your average Kenyan is struggling because in the last 2 years, actually 2.5 years, statutory deductions that have been imposed on Kenyans' pay slips is crazy. You have universal health care that was
Which is a good thing.
introduced.
I mean, that's a good thing. What do you mean?
We'll come to it. Don't even get me started. You have universal health care, very good on paper. I'll
Yes,
tell you where the
okay.
gap is. You have social security, which is your retirement fund.
I mean, that's okay. That's your money.
Percentage
fundamentally.
of it was increased. Yeah, from X percent from February this year, the percentage went up. You have mandatory housing, I think they call it
Levy.
Levy. Yeah,
Yeah, that one was strange. Okay.
it's quite strange. And you have.
So is government building houses?
They are, but they are also using that same money to build markets, schools, hospitals. Again, that was yesterday. It's funds are being diverted to do things. The presentation was like this. Then here we are saying, actually, no, we are not going to use that money to build houses that we promised you that you could buy. Instead, we're going to build you markets, hospitals, and police posts. So the monies that are actually supposed to be building these things, where's that money? What are you doing with it? Is it even constitutional? So those are the questions. When you say the optics of Nairobi, yes, it's a beautiful city. It's very vibrant. I love the people. The life in this city, absolutely amazing. But I keep saying Nairobi is fun when you have money. If you don't have money in this city, which is, again, the reality for majority, if not most, of the people that live in this city, then it stops being fun.
How do those people who don't have jobs survive?
You know, Nairobi and Kenya is a nation of hustlers. So you have people coming up with different ideas. I have not seen a more innovative people than the people of Kenya. People have ideas. So people have gone into creating their own products, small businesses that really sustain them. You have people tapping into communities. Communities like, say if it's your neighborhood and you're able to do grocery supply, for example, just to keep lights on. So you've seen people who are laid off, say, for example, from jobs, being able to sustain their families, not, of course, to the extent they used to. If you were a 2-income household, now maybe being reduced to a 1-income household. So you find ways. People have gotten into consultancies for the professionals, being able to use the skills that they have, and just different innovations. During COVID, I think, is when we were able to see just how innovative people could be. It's like people started making even banana bread in their houses. People have come up with proper tech solutions that now can be used and scaled up, and people going for funding and all of that. So that's the spirit of Kenya, is that it's a never can die spirit, is that things might be bad, but we'll survive. And that's what I love about this city, is that come what may, it's okay, we will survive. And if only the policies of this country worked for us, imagine where we would be. You think now we're in Dubai?
Can I ask you a question? There's someone who says that a country's there's a statement. Someone says that a country's leadership is a representation of its people.
I agree with you 100%.
So make it make sense.
It's exactly as you said it. So here's the thing, yeah. The reality of it is, and I'm happy that even as Kenyans, we call ourselves out. We are our leaders.
Those are
They are a reflection
Yeah.
of who we are. And so that is a call of introspection. We really need to go back to what are our values. Because if we're very quick to criticize our leadership, and yet they're a good reflection of us, what does that say about me? The reality of that is not lost on Kenyans. We have not detached ourselves from that leadership. If anything, we've said, yeah, you are us. So what do we do about it? Introspect on our values, take ourselves back to school and say, okay, we need to become better people. And to become better people, it has to start with us. We have to do better if at all we're going to choose better.
I'd like to ask you, when we're talking about media and trying to, keep the lights on,
Yeah.
one of the things that, because what companies will do is that they will try to spend the money where they think they'll get the most impact.
Correct.
And what I'm seeing is that social media has whittled down our attention spans.
Oh, yeah.
Right, as people, right? So the only thing that really resonates with us are things that become viral. Then you're like, ooh, okay, I get this. Ooh,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Now, for me, the thing is, very often, as someone who started my media career, working in a newspaper, newspapers or media that I was taught wasn't about viral moments. It's about educating and giving you the space to figure things out and digest information. Now, I'm pretty sure it's the same when you're on radio and you're talking about very complex things, right? You're not trying to be viral.
No.
You're trying to give people information so they can figure out their lives. But you're in the marketplace, right? And the only way that you stand out is by doing things or having takes that work really well on social media, right? TikTok, right? So she said something, oh my God, let me listen to the whole conversation, right? So people have actually used viral moments to then drive both marketing dollars, but also public attention.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to ask you, as someone who's a responsible member of the Kenyan media, hopefully, how do you balance those two things, right? The need to be viral so that you get some public attention, which is also then good for the bottom line, because those businesses that are cutting funding, they will then say, okay, but let's keep our funding with them because people are engaged with the all these moments that they're giving us. While on the other side, understanding that I'm a responsible media person. I have a job to do, which is not to get everyone's, cortisol up.
Yeah.
Their adrenaline up.
And dopamine.
And dopamine and all that, those feelings.
Yeah.
But I'm actually supposed to educate. How do you balance those two things?
In this world that we live in right now, I keep saying social media has turned everybody's attention, not everybody, actually let me not use a blanket statement, but people have the attention span of a fruit fly. And the fruit fly has an attention span of 4 seconds, and now they're saying it's even worse, it's 1 second. So every time I think about that, it breaks my heart, because then the consumption of media becomes exactly that, is 4 seconds in and someone is like, get to the point, get to the point, get to the point. We do a 4-hour show from 6 to 10. So how do you make sure that you have somebody tuned in, giving you 4 hours of their time and not tuning off? A very delicate balance, and I'm happy that you brought that in. I don't care so much for virality. If anything, I hold no place for it. But again, knowing how the world works right now, bringing in audiences, there has to be that sweet spot. that you hit. So just to make sure that you have a ready cut that then can drive people in. What we've seen is there's still a very big majority of people, and these would be, say, new audiences of younger people that really do not quite rate traditional media, but love depth of conversation. And then you have your old school people, yeah, who for them it's, yeah, please, I love this. Cutting across those two audiences also comes with its own very unique challenges. So I'll tell you, for me, I stand in the space of truth. Whatever holds truth for me is what I'll anchor myself on. Might come off as boring. And I think it's me allowing myself to actually be termed as boring. Because then with depth in a world that doesn't quite appreciate depth, you can be termed as boring, which then would make you want to start doing on this other side, where numbers excite you and all of that, and then that makes sure that you have advertising. But I still think there's space for people who appreciate that kind of packaging that is just not hit and go microwave kind of. There's still space for those people. If anything, what we try and do is have different kind of segments that appeal to now these new audiences that I'm talking about. Segments that would actually make sure that they are glued. The beauty of radio is you can't be doing, say, a link or speaking for more than 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes. If you're doing anything more than that, then you're overdoing. So it's how then do you structure the shows that you're doing to just make sure that you are balancing out conversation and not boring people where attention is concerned. It's a very delicate balance. Programs now and programs managers, directors, and all of that have a heavy task because they are the people to help sort of guide. We are the voices. We're the people that then come in and we're the cherry on top. But there's a machinery that happens that runs this thing behind us. We have an entire team that sits down and do structure and we plan. So with them understanding how audiences are shifting right now, it's exactly that. We're like, okay, let's play to different segments. That maybe out of so much seriousness, you have this one thing that can allow us to tap into your audiences and bring in the engagement that you need. Then at that point, they can come and appreciate the conversations that you're having. But at the end of it all, it's still, I can't say anyone has quite figured it out. Not yet.
You know, when you are a person on radio, when you are the voice, you are a very powerful person. You choose what content is out there, right? It's like me. I choose my guest. I choose the questions. I have a very, I have a certain level of power. Now, do you use that power to ever dampen stories or conversations because you're thinking this might be a conversation, but I don't think it's a good one to have? Or are there certain stories that you say, this is an obscure conversation, but I think this one, we need to have it? Do you ever use your platform to
Dampen
uplift or dampen?
I would tell you, being in a station like Capital FM, one gives you a certain kind of freedom that is beautiful because then you're encouraged to actually even highlight stories that would otherwise be dampened. Yes, that this is definitely not the trajectory that would be going in because it's not pro, say, government. It's not pro, I love the environment that Capital FM is because then that in itself allows me, the person behind the mic, to be able to pick whatsoever story and run with it. Just as long as I feel it's a story that needs to be highlighted. Now it comes down to the values that I have as a person. I'm like, what do I actually want to do with the power that I'm given? Because as you said, very rightfully, we have so much power. Ideally for me, it's how do I make sure I represent people that are considered voiceless? Correct? People who would otherwise not be able to get a platform to speak to their issues or have their stories heard. causes that need to be spotlighted, that would otherwise maybe just be pushed via new media, but could use that push on legacy media to actually give it some boost. That for me appeals to me. Just recently, I came back from a trip to Israel.
Controversial.
Very controversial. And I would tell you the reality of where the world is when it comes to critical thinking and nuance became so real to me when just a few days before coming back, I got so the flood of messages I was getting on social media
About you being there?
about my being there. Zero context. You see, we've taken away the right for people to go and actually have first-hand experiences in places just because it is not the trend is telling you should be pushing for this.
Cancel
it. But what information do you have? So that for me gave me so much. I've been thinking about it a lot. I think I came back a very changed person. I don't think I'm the same person that traveled
Really?
to that country.
Why?
It's, these material and things that you interact with on headlines, curated by different people, different organizations, and I say curated because
We know.
yeah, we know how it works. And being there, speaking to different kinds of people, you speak to people in government, you speak to victims of the kind of the chaos that's happening there. You speak to families that still have missing family members that are being held captive, going to see villages that were burnt down, and the reality of it really clicked and sort of like had me asking questions that I would never have asked should I have remained here in the comfort of my home. And it put a certain curiosity in me that was not there before, a curiosity for truth outside of everything that is being reported. Because again, the reality of the interests that lie in that region is not lost on me. So I cannot stand in a space and say I am pro this, and I'm just pro human lives. I will not brand it as anything else. But no, the lack of nuance and also the lack of people wanting to have meaningful engagement, to just say, what did you see? What did you hear? There's so much anger, and it's very valid anger, because when you see what's on the news and you see the videos on social,
disgusting.
it's disgusting. It's so heartbreaking. You see it and it's like, no, you should be enraged. But I am enraged. I am very angry because lives are being lost left, right, and center. But if peace is going to come into that region, then we need to step outside of the blinders that continue to surround us, because, again, there's interests. There's people with all manner of interest when it comes to conflict. And it's not just that one region. The other question that I start asking myself is, we have an interest that is outside of our continent. What about the things that are happening in this continent? We have Sudan. We have people getting killed, people displaced, refugees fleeing on a daily basis, a war that has been going on since 2023.
Well, actually, someone would say that isn't Kenya the home of the largest South Sudanese refugee camp?
Yeah.
That's something from the 80s.
It's from the 80s. It didn't just start now.
No.
There's that conflict, there's DRC. So the questions I started asking myself when I tell you I came back a changed person, it's very easy for me to get activated and enraged about things that are outside of my continent. But really, as an African, what am I doing to highlight the issues happening within our very own continent?
I guess, that's a great question. I would like to ask you then, when you guys, there was, for us in Rwanda, we think less about what's happening in Kenya and more about, not because you're not important,
Yeah.
but because there's a lot of action, say, in Congo.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of where our attention is, Burundi, even Uganda. Do you, one of the things that I always wonder about Kenyans is, has your stability and your proximity to globalization, some people might call it the white world, made you look inwards and then outwards, versus looking at us and thinking, oh, well, you know, there's the DRC. Because very often I'll listen to Kenyan, every so often there'll be someone who'll wake up and he'll be a Kenyan journalist or person who has decided to grab a microphone and they will talk about Rwanda and the Congo and I'll scratch my head and I'm like, Kenyans are being Kenyans. You know,
I can imagine.
But it's interesting for me. You know, are you within the power that you have, the platform that you have? Are you also spending some time trying to figure out, okay, beyond Israel and Palestine, right? Which is, I get it. It's a big deal. But there, people were being eaten in Eastern DRC. There were acts of cannibalism. There were acts of violence.
I've seen the videos.
Do people talk about them here?
No. You see, now that becomes the thing that's been tugging at me. And you know, your initial question is that Kenya's proximity and acts is like how it's almost become, we have a certain kind of privilege.
No, 100%.
We are very privileged. Yeah. And it kind of makes us feel like, you know how as Kenyans we say this thing where, South Africans, well, we really shouldn't even consider South Africa a part of Africa or North Africa because of, again, there's a certain level of detachment. I feel as Kenyans, we are very detached from the happenings of this continent.
Of the hinterland.
Of, you know, it's like, there's them and then there's us.
Yes.
You know? And I've been challenged, not even just from that visit. I sat down with a friend before I traveled, and I was just sharing. It's like I was reflecting on a lot of things, and he did tell me, he's like, you know what? I'm happy your mind is at, as much as yes, you are experiencing the outside world, amplifying the voices of Africans and the causes of Africans and the things that are happening in Africa. Do not be far removed from it because it's not trendy, or because it doesn't have an appeal to it. Because then that's the other thing that we tend to think, there's no appeal to this, like, whatever, I will not talk about it. It's challenged me to really sink my teeth into understanding context, having nuance over what's happening really in DRC. Who's doing what? Who can we speak to? And not just when a headline comes up and we hear, this has been
according
taken
to
over.
Reuters, and no.
And it's according to foreign
Reuters.
press.
Yeah.
And it's never our own people. It's foreign press that's coming to tell African stories. Why is that happening?
I mean, most of them are based here.
Yeah. It's like they've invested to be.
So The Economist will have an office here.
Yes.
And it will be maybe one or two white people.
Yeah.
And they will report it. Listen.
And they will write those headlines based on how they want to write it. Because then there's a lot of misreporting when it comes to Africa. There's a lot of framing and messaging that is done in ways that ideally are made to create a certain kind of narrative. I'm not saying that the fact is not there. The facts are there. But as Africans, we really, really, really need to be able to, we need to come back to our own.
I'd like to ask you, we've been talking about stories and the stories that are not being highlighted. What was the last story that you kind of gave an extra boost on your morning show and said and told Kenyans, hey, this is probably, you probably never heard of this. This is what you need to know. What was the last story?
Actually, there was a story that I did today morning on Zimbabwe and elephants. How I was not familiar with culling of elephants.
Yes.
Yeah. So
there are too many elephants.
Yeah, they just have too many elephants. And I'm like, what do you mean you have too many elephants in your country? And are you seeing the shock on you should have seen the shock on my face in the morning. And I'm like, what do you mean you have 2,550 elephants within this reserve and the capacity is 800? That's 3 times more or 4 times more the number of elephants that you should be having, which now you have to cully 50 of them and of course feed the locals and all of that. I see that. And of course the first thing in me was, why are we killing elephants? Then come down to, okay, what's the process of even just like moving wildlife across borders? Because in Africa, the reality is we have a lot of wildlife. It's part of what makes our continent so beautiful and so rich. And it's the appeal to our continent. But then again, I wasn't aware that, you know, there's these processes and organizations that have been set up to make sure that, you know, you can be able to move, say, elephants from Zimbabwe to the Serengeti or these from that. And so now my mind is there. My curiosity has already been triggered into understanding that. And of course, now for me, that's a developing story, in which case I'll be able to inform another curious mind that maybe would even have an interest in working in that kind of sector, that these a balance of stories told about our continent. It's not just conflict. We have so many beautiful things going on. So as far as your question goes, today morning, I had the story in Zimbabwe.
And what was the last story you killed that was popular? Because I can tell you, every so often, I ask myself, yes, this will give me views. But is it going to give people what they need? And I will say, yeah, I won't do this.
You know, we've never had such a scenario here.
Really?
At Capital. We've never.
Not a story, not a rumor, not a...
Because by the time we're speaking to a story, there's information, there's fact. We work very closely with our news desk. So at any given time, if we are yapping about something, it's definitely informed from somewhere. We have a point of reference where we can call, find out fact, whatever. I've not experienced such a scenario here where a story is killed and you're told, no, stop.
Not killing it, but like rather saying, this is a story, yes, but it's stupid. Right? Like there are lots of, you're just like, no.
Oh, when it comes like, yeah,
it's like, okay, fine, it's popular, you know, but no.
I'll tell you stories that I end up killing.
Yeah.
Is bickering of politicians is something that I will never give a platform, because just the other day we were talking about rage baiting people, which is something that is done the world over by leaders. And you can see rage bait as it comes. So you'll open the dailies and you're like, no, we're not going to talk about this, because the more we give these people airtime,
so then people will call in angry.
People get
angry.
And then it's a whole cycle. It never stops. So how do we kill the cycle? Just don't talk about it, because they're doing this to get attention. So for me, things that I'm quick to kill is as far as politicians bickering is concerned. We'll only talk about it if at all there's something of substance in it, which is, if you're speaking to policy, good. If you're speaking to something that is being done, being actioned, good. But these are the things that, oh, you went to a rally, oh, who insulted who? It's nonsense. It's like, why are we even talking about you calling people foolish? And it's front page. That's the other thing that disappoints me about media. And that's why people continue to lose trust in media, is seeing the things that get attention and the things that are not highlighted. I'll give you an example. In Kenya right now, there's an ongoing petition. Not even from government, has not gotten any woman in parliament government endorsing it or even pushing for it, is making femicide a crime in this country. It's not a crime. Yeah.
Why should it be?
Should be made a crime because it's targeted towards women and girls. It's very clear. There's enough cases. In fact, the report that came out this year is that 2024 saw the highest number of femicide in this country. It's a concern. There's been like 2
Why? Why? What's happening? What are we not getting?
I'm happy you asked the why, because then that's a question that is being asked in the conversations that we're having now, is that the very fabric of society has been broken. There's an intolerance that has crept up. There's a very...
Between who and who?
Between men and women. The very fabric of society starts from the context of family, correct? So when the family unit is compromised, what happens?
Everything is broken.
Correct. So when we start seeing things like a father who molested his daughters over the course of so many years, when you start seeing stories of how a little girl, 13 years of age, was found sexually assaulted, murdered, and buried inside a man's house, it points to the very decay of our society starts from the context of family. So back to, when you have things that actually matters and issues that need to be highlighted and spoken about and given prominence, and you have headlines that are very, very clearly driven towards a certain kind of agenda and benefit only the political class, is why people lose trust in legacy media. Because when you switch on the TV, it's never the things that are important that are being spoken about. And that, I feel, is the gap that we've been addressing here as Capital. And the show that I do every morning is that we are not lost in the noise. If anything, we are here to stand in that gap and speak to the issues that are not being spoken about.
Talking about relationships between men and women. So today I was coming here, had to get an Uber, so it was an older gentleman, maybe maximum 50 years of age. Can't really tell sometimes.
Yeah.
And so he's driving, and he's driving quite aggressively. Now, I every 5 or 10 minutes, I thought I'd meet my maker. Obviously, I didn't. I'm here now.
Thank God.
I wanted to. I was like, you know what? I'm really not going to give him a great rating. But then the other side, I was thinking, oh, he's probably stressed. I mean, no one wants to be 50 riding an Uber, right? Something went wrong in his life to bring him to this point. And I was like, you know what? Let me give him grace. So we hit one of the infamous jams, and he's driving. Like I'm thinking, oh, this man he's trying to get me here on time.
He understands the urgency.
I mean, listen. It was scary. It was actually scary. But he then tries to overtake illegally, FYI, some small Vitz. He has his Vitz, small black Vitz. So he overtakes it, and then eventually finds a traffic jam. So the Vitz comes alongside him, and it's a woman. Probably maximum 35. And then they start.
There's an exchange.
Oh yeah, and it's aggressive.
Oh.
Right? And it was in Swahili, which is not a language I'm really good at. But the last thing she said was, "I'm a Kenyan woman. I will show you." and
she must have been so angry.
and his reaction was, he kind of laughed and shook his head. He's like, these women. Now, that is that was a scary exchange for me, because one of the, again, I've been here a couple of days now, and I'm talking to a few people, and I'm talking to friends who now live here, trying to get a sense of the people, and the conversation that kept coming up was the relationships, or the lack thereof, of the two yin and yangs, men and women. And I was like, what is going on? And someone kept saying, Kenyan women have become independent. It's like, well, that's not a bad thing fundamentally. For me, I think it's not a bad thing to be.
It's not a bad thing, yeah.
But that small interaction kind of gave me pause, and I felt that it was, maybe I'm reading too much into the situation, but I had never seen something like that back home. right? Like we have bad driving too,
Mm.
but there was no, I did not understand the reason,
Where it had to escalate.
not just escalate. Why do you say that? I am this. Okay, I mean, you are obviously a Kenyan.
Yeah.
But then by her saying it out loud and in anger, she was trying to convey a
Communicating,
message.
Yeah.
What was that message?
You know, it's there's a certain kind of rage and anger we continue to witness between the sexes. Not to say this is the majority, but we are not going to deny that it's there, because then now it's escalating to violence. In such a situation, for example, what are the chances that it would have escalated had one person not walked away from it? And escalating not to the point of involving authorities, but an escalation between two people. It's like, yeah, let's wear it off. I'll teach you a lesson. We see it so many times, even in threats that are passed on, is that you want to communicate, you know, I'm not too happy with this, you're told, don't bring your nonsense here. But that is framed in Swahili and it's packaged in a certain kind of way. So you're seeing a lot of one, I don't want to call it discontent, but anger that stems from so many things. A psychologist maybe would be better placed to dissect it. But from what I analyze it as is, you've spoken of independence, that a lot more women are now educated and are able to make their own money.
Which is an amazing thing.
Which is amazing, which then means she's economically empowered. And that kind of empowerment is a threat to men who'd still be holding on to the traditional sense of doing things. As, you know, you stay at home.
In this economy?
Good question. It's like, how? Unless you, please tell me.
I mean, back in Kigali, listen, we need 2-parent households.
Yeah.
There need to be, listen.
In this economy, you really cannot then come and start applying that kind of selectiveness, because then it's very odd that on one part you expect this person to be able to stand on both feet. But on this other hand, you're like, don't be too empowered, because then it's a threat to me. It's like, so why is it then now, it brings us to other conversations that are now starting to be had. Why is masculinity so rooted in things like provision alone? It's like, is that really what makes a man? I'm not a man, cannot speak on their behalf. But these conversations are now being triggered. Is that when we start seeing these cases of things that are happening, even to the most educated and you know, women that would consider that they are far removed from these kind of realities, we are seeing them. It's like the violence exists within their homes.
Even
So like,
with the rich people.
Yes. So it's not something that is a class issue. It's not a class issue. It actually comes down, it stems to the very, very fundamentals of who we are as men and women and how we coexist in a fast-moving world and in a world that demands so much from each of us, that now we're getting to a place of intolerance where we think your struggle is bigger than mine and vice versa. But why does it have to be that? Why can't it just be, you're struggling, I'm struggling? Let's have a candid conversation about that without trying to one-up each other. So you're finding now these just people trying to get attention and trying to be heard, and without even, it's too layered. It's too layered. I experience it. It's like, even to someone like me who is, you know, just, I'm here, I could be having a conversation, even with, say, for example, a friend. And I see how some things would be too triggering or too charged, and I know how to de-escalate the situation. But then again, I think about people that do not have the switch to be able to say, yeah, this is escalating a bit too fast. Maybe I need to just let it go. There's an intolerance.
Not just an anger.
A lot of anger, to the point where it's
because it felt it was no, like I was looking at, I was like,
it's
listen,
anger.
it's really not that deep.
But also, do you think that it could be that this is anger that stems from so many other things, compounding factors, and then it finds an outlet, and it's like, yeah, opportunity has come, distraction. So I will take out that anger on you because then there's no other outlet. Because then people are frustrated with so many things. I mean, he could be having a day, maybe. You know,
Listen,
somebody's not
he
paid
just
him,
he was just trying to listen.
the man was having a day, clearly, but it paints to something that we continue witnessing. I mean, I work within a media house. Every other day you hear there's something. Just the other day, but that's a case of political intolerance, but it's still intolerance. A certain lady, I think she's a county assembly member, was at a funeral, and she was talking in local dialect and saying how she's endorsing a particular person from her region. And I have never seen anything like that, because 4 men, actually there were 5 men, walk from the crowd towards her and they start beating her.
I don't understand.
That kind of intolerance.
No. It's no. I don't call it intolerance.
Well, how would we call it? What do we call it?
Okay, again, I'm not from this culture, and I only know the culture that I was raised in, and the culture that I'm being raised in, and I don't even, it doesn't compute in my mind. What you've just told me
You
does
can't
not
compute it.
It does not. What do you mean? 4 men.
Yeah.
Wait. How do you even define men? Because 4 men don't beat. You're not a man who beats a woman. Now you cannot be 4 of you.
Launching yourselves.
You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there's certain things that I think maybe it gets to a point when you think it's almost normalized, but it's not.
It's not.
What do you do? Like, what do you mean?
Do you know that kind of we now,
Because it's not rage. No.
It's not rage.
It's not anger. Would they have done it with a guy?
So there's instances where as far as that kind of in political settings or whatever, where we've seen,
So that's a normal practice that
it's now
people
starting
just
to
beat
become
up
very
people.
frequent.
Yeah.
It's not normal, and I don't want to call it normal, but we're now starting to see it happening frequently.
Can I ask you a question? What happens? Because obviously it's something that you saw, right? So it was recorded.
It was recorded.
The
it was on
gentlemen are
TikTok.
known.
Yeah.
What happens
So
to the criminals? Because that's what they are.
they're criminals. Australia need to follow up on, but in the case where justice has to prevail in those contexts, people
Why did you laugh?
I laughed. Actually, I scoffed, because people will be arrested. Said people, even when there's evidence, they'll be arrested, and then soon after they'll be let go.
I guess it goes back to some of the earlier conversations that we're having about the system.
Correct.
And you know, it's not just about a bill. It's not just about odious debt. Because if within the way you practice governance, there is space for violence that is not even shameless violence. Like, okay, I get it if it's like we're hiding this, and I kind of like threw a stone, or no. This is shameless violence that is used to push political agenda, and as you've said, it's becoming more and more frequent. So it's become almost modus operandi. Everything. It's not about one person falling. I think there has to be a full reckoning. I think because one of the things that I know is that where Kenya goes, the rest of the region follows.
Exactly.
Right. So you actually have an oversized responsibility.
We do.
right? To get your house in order.
We need to get our
And
ducks in a row.
no, and I don't mean that. I don't want it to sound like, you know, I'm lecturing and saying you guys are doing it wrong. No, it's like when we look at the U.S. before Trump came and really just kind of like showed us the U.S.'s nakedness. There was a time when we were saying the U.S.
Wow. Yeah.
do better because we need you. You represent something.
Correct.
Right? Treat your African Americans well. Treat your, you know what? Because you represent this shining light on a hill.
It's like we look up to you and we're thinking, wow,
okay,
I want to get there.
Right? Because that's what you look like. It's paradise there. There are a lot of people in our region who look at Kenya and we need you to be prosperous. Right? We need you to be the girlies that you are.
No. Period.
Right? So I don't want it to seem like I'm like, lecture Hector. No, I'm just like, no, certain,
but
make it make
has
sense.
To be that. And we appreciate when we hear such things, because it's always good to have people that call you out.
I'm not even calling you out.
It's like you've not even always like, I know the day, when the day comes, and, you know, Kenya needs to be called out. We need to be called out, because then there's a self-righteousness that can creep up, that unfortunately becomes the very reflections. Like, you know, you have these blinders, and I feel like as Kenya, starting with, again, the very top, coming down, there's a self-righteousness that we start carrying ourselves in, that we think, no, I think we're okay. No.
We're better than
we're better than
you guys. I mean, but you are. You are. But what we say is, be that person.
You be that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's we have to, and these, I'm putting myself in that pot as well. We have to do better, given that we carry the torch and the mantle when it comes to this region. We have a responsibility, and that responsibility has to, you know, when you've been entrusted with that kind of leaders, it's God-given, because then it's no one came down and said, okay, Kenya, you're the ones to lead the region. No.
No, I mean, you're just there. You have Mombasa, you have Nairobi, you have Kisumu, you have Busia,
Nakuru, Nanyuki.
you have, you know, Mount Kenya, you have everything.
Yeah.
You are literally, I think, you should be and you are the driving force of the region. You are the engine.
Let me ask you, if things were to be turned and Kenya was Rwanda, like with our sheer size and everything, where do you see, what do you think Rwanda would be able to do with Kenya?
I think that's a question that is almost a non-starter for me, because maybe let's break it down. Remember that Rwanda is not a colonial creation.
Yeah.
Right. So first of all, we're a kingdom that has existed for millennia. Right. The Belgians and the Germans came and found us there, and then said, okay, this is your border, versus you, right? Where you had, you know, a bunch of people that had to come together and try to figure out what a nationhood looks like, right? So there is that. Now, if we had, say, the Rwandan kingdom was Kenya, are we also dealing with the very same social, like, classes, like within, right? So I just want to make sure that we're,
it's like with what it is right now.
With what it is, but with Kenya's population.
Yeah. And the sheer size.
And the sheer size and its position. Okay, one. I think that's almost impossible, because I don't think that if we had your sheer size and wealth and everything, I don't think that we would have been forced to become the nation that we became. You get? So you think about Rwanda, right? So we were a tiny little kingdom, and then colony. one of the biggest issues that we had was land pressure, right? So a lot of our conflict, a lot of our issues stem from lack of space. That's never been an issue in Kenya. It's becoming an issue in certain parts now, but it was never really an issue. And even, let's be honest, it's not really an issue. It's more about, we all want to be in this part of Kenya. There's a huge part of Kenya that's very empty.
Yeah.
It's not right? So ours was more about, okay, we are a highly densely populated little kingdom, and that has created the people that we are. So it created the refugee crisis. It created and then it created the things that have now become us. So our pain is creating, quote unquote, our success. Right? But we had to go through the pain. I don't think that if we were a rich, big old country, would we have gone through the similar pain?
Not really.
Right? Would we have needed to be so fiscally disciplined? Because we don't have a lot. What happens when you have a lot? You waste it.
You waste it.
Because
That's
more money will
come. Yeah.
And it always is. So what happens is, okay, our economy is right now, as of 2023, about $14 billion.
Wow.
That's nothing. When people laugh at Rwanda, they're like, our economy is the size of Nakuru County. Facts. Now, because our economy is so small and our challenges are so many, we have two choices. Either we'll become we'll either make it work, or we'll become a basket case. 1994, we became a basket case. 2025, we're trying to make it work. But it's still fundamentally the issues of lack of land, the issues of lack of resources are still there. All we've now done is like try to concentrate and say, okay, how do we solve for this problem? By being disciplined, by using everyone. Back in the day, women were not always given the prominent role that they have today. But the president came and said, how do you win a war? How do you build a country with half of the forces? Because he's a military man. He's thinking in terms of soldiers to win a war. So imagine all the men are your troops, but then there's another 50% that are not being used because of misogyny. No. We're going to use them too, so that we can build this. And we shall then have to figure out how to live with each other and create a new culture. Because yes, Rwandan women were very often in the background for the longest time, culturally. But
now
we had no choice.
Do you know that's some of the lessons that I pick from Rwanda is that, and you've spoken so well about it. One is the discipline that comes with realizing exactly who you are. It's like, listen, this is what we have to work with. It's a reality check. And if 94 didn't happen, then y'all wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be having this conversation the way we are. What fascinates me about Rwanda is structure and systems that work. I live in a country that has a lot when it comes to money, but we lack structure, systems. And those that are there are abused.
I guess one of the questions is, right, and it goes back to I think the founding of the colonial state. And then people will come back about culture and leaders. We were a kingdom that had, ways of doing things, right? There's a way that the king would send information all the way down. And there was a way that information would go all the way up to the king. And there were chiefs and there were structures. And so it's not something that we had to invent. It was not something that was foreign to us as a people. Strong leadership is not something that is, weird to us. Listening to our leaders,
Mhm.
it's not something that's weird to us. It's because it's
It's something.
almost,
It's always been there.
it's always been there.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
you know a
I'll
lot
be
of
int-
discourse that happens about Rwanda, that it's there's this thing where it's almost like people have been very stifled.
Mm.
It's like people are afraid. But I
Afraid.
see how that would be when you come
Afraid of what?
just afraid of speaking out, because then again government and your president has just made sure that people cannot speak. And I'm asking this because then you call Rwanda home. That's your country. And I would really just maybe want you to frame it for and make people understand, because if people come from Kenyans are very outspoken, just very loud, whatever, which is good, very expressive. But the same for anyone that has experienced Rwanda, one would say, yeah, they're not as expressive, and therefore that equals being.
Well, think about it like this. Again, we are not a colonial construct, right? We did not just get the British behavior and then make it our own.
Yeah.
We've always been, the first time Muzungus came into the Rwandan kingdom around 1895. That's far, much later than you guys. You guys were in it from the very beginning. They were taken aback by these Africans who were not intimidated and who were not impressed. And they found it strange. They found us strange even then. Why are you so calm? But it's also because our culture frowns upon huge displays of emotion. We tell our kids when they're young, itonde, which means be calm. Right? It's something that's bred in you, right? So the thing that I saw between the woman and the taxi man,
That's why you.
it was weird to me because I'm like, what is going?
Yeah.
These overly expressive emotions are strange.
Yeah. It's
just-
foreign.
Right? And
Yeah.
I'm not saying one is better than the other. Ours is just fundamentally a culture.
It's a culture, yeah.
That's been bred in us for millennia to keep our cards very close to our chest. Emotion is not something to be celebrated. You'll see wedding photos of people. You'd think they were angry at each other.
Well, I have I almost became an in-law of Rwanda at one point.
Yeah.
So attended a wedding for a family member, was getting married to a Ugandan Rwandese guy, and she was Kenyan Rwandese. And there's no display of emotion, or it's not too in your face. And I do agree with you, it kind of looks like, you had a fight on the morning of, but these people are actually very happy. And when they tell you, yeah, we are happy, you're like, oh, happiness has a different look.
No, I think our emotions run deep. They're very deep. It's what they say about still water.
Yeah.
Runs very deep.
So it's not a thing, because I do agree with you that perception, especially when the culture is very different, you'd think, say, for example, Nigerians are one thing based on how they behave and how they operate, that Rwandese are, contained and suppressed.
No, we are contained. No. I will agree with you. We are contained.
But not
suppressed. See, there's also this, right? So I guess so let's imagine me and you, right? It's the very same situation. You feel that you have been aggressed by a government official or a police officer. He's mistreated you. How would you go about it in Kenya right now? What would you do? You've driven home, right? So you can't fight it out there, right? But you've driven home. What would you do with those feelings? Where would you direct it?
The unfortunate thing is this.
Mm.
My personality type
Mm.
is that which I will be exactly as you see me right now.
Mm.
But the person that I need to speak to when I meet them,
Mm.
or they'll hear it.
Mm.
So it will be directed
Mm.
to the person that I feel would be able to help me solve that problem.
Mm.
When I was younger, unfortunately, it was very different. I would find a way of unleashing it on anything that I felt deserved that kind of wrath, which is, again, a lack of emotional control and regulation.
No, that's fine. But then that's how you'd react.
Yeah.
So very often in the very same case, what they will do, what a young woman will do, is go to Twitter, at the police, at the police spokesperson, at the Rwanda Investigation Bureau, and write her complaint. And more often than not, what will then happen, especially if you have like a whether it's a video or whatever, or you'll see, and I want you to actually try it. Go online and see. You'll see them say, "Oh, this is a police. This is a police. Please send us, DM us your number."
Oh.
Immediately.
What?
Because the way we get, so certain people have to agitate for their rights and to kick up a fuss.
Yeah.
And actually go out on the street. The state that has been created by our president is very aware of its responsibility to the citizens. So I don't need to act out. And I'm not saying act out in a bad way. It's.
But
I don't,
that's, yeah.
I know there's going to be cases of injustice. I just need to know, okay, I know how because they've tried to create systems that allow for
proper channels of communication to have your issues addressed.
Yes.
I'm actually very mind blown by that.
So, but that makes our media very boring. Because guess what?
Oh yeah.
There's not a lot happening. Like, imagine, listen. If there's no huge corruption, right, there's always going to be corruption in systems. Then what stories really are there? I
was going to ask you, then what is it like? Is it just good news that then makes news?
Well, here's the thing. Is it good news? Well, there's a lot of developmental news. Okay, they've built this, they're going to do this, there's a lot of those, right? There's a lot of, is there a lot of, there's very little like political scandal. No, because usually before they get to your desk, they've been dealt with. Because one of the things that is that you will go to jail. Quickly. And there is no one that will save you. I tell people all the time, our uniform is, our prison uniform is pink. And I tell people, it's
for both men and women?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, wow.
Pink. Bright neon pink. So I tell my friends whenever they get good jobs, I like, pink is not your color. It doesn't look good on you.
It doesn't bring out your eyes.
No.
So just make sure you don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
So then news, now I understand what you say is like, then the excitement of media then is not there. So then what makes for, I remember there's a time, this is last year, somebody on X dared, this was a Kenyan who wrote something about Rwanda, and there was a tiff. Kenyans KOT.
Yeah, what's that about?
Like,
why?
Just
every so often.
Why? There's a thing going on.
Why?
No
It's-
idea. And you know, even the very origins of it, sometimes I find it very comical, is that, but then it gets very crazy.
I don't find it comical. I don't think
Mhm.
it's funny. I think if you're not careful,
Mhm.
it creates an unnecessary friction
Correct.
between. Sometimes I actually think it's the workings of the CIA. They, you know, to keep us apart, to keep us,
Very.
at loggerheads. Oh, you Rwandans, you think you're this. Oh, you're here selling peanuts in Kenya. Of course, if you say that, then someone else will be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying this about my country.
Yeah. It becomes a thing. The reason why I find is like the comical side of things is this: Kenyans use humor as a coping mechanism. Very quiz like, and it's witty, it's what, and sometimes it doesn't mean anything. People are just having fun. But now when it gets to points where now we are dragging, say, people where it loses its lightness and now becomes very, we are attacking, then that I do not stand for. Last year, we did see a scenario where, and I don't even know what the origins of that was. A Kenyan tweep addressed a certain lady from Rwanda, and it's how she shut down that entire fight with like
Yeah,
three.
she's a friend of mine.
She
I know
is?
her, yeah.
Please
Belinda.
tell her congratulations, because wow, to date, even Kenyans, and this is now just a comical side of things, people are like, yo, maybe you just need to forgive us so that we stop going through what we're going through, you know. But that was quick kill. We are not gonna talk about this. Wow. So you have instances like those that then we're able to recognize when somebody holds up a mirror to us and tells us, yeah, maybe you ought to pick a mirror and look at yourself because you're not as perfect and you have your own issues to deal with. So maybe focus on that. That was mic drop 10-0.
But I think, I don't know, I don't think those things are helpful.
They're not.
I mean, it's these conversations, and I see them very often, right? So it's South Africa, it's Kenya, and it's Nigeria. And every so often, it seems like something will be said. And I don't see it elsewhere.
No, actually across the world, I
Right?
don't see it elsewhere.
No.
It's, and I will
At some level,
agree with your theory.
think about it.
That
Like, it's the three strongest, biggest economies that
In
if they
Africa.
could help get their act together,
yeah,
if they could open their borders to each other's citizens,
yeah.
if they could drive this continent, and it's only the young people engaged in those things.
Yeah.
They know that the young people are the future.
Yeah. It's like, occupy them with nonsense then.
And no, get them at each other's throats.
Yeah. It's because then if you come to the very COVID war, what are they fighting about? It's nothing.
They think it's fun.
It's, you see, then you encourage it like these people should be out there doing something that benefits them, but here they are spending majority of their time on the internet. I did see Tanzania shut their internet. It's been making the headlines. I don't know what you make of it's something that I had wanted to ask you at the very beginning.
Sure.
What you make of, you know, what we are now starting to see as a whole East African big concern around East Africa, and the crackdown on dissenting voices and the use of violence and just security apparatus being used the wrong way. I mean, we have Kenyans that went to Tanzania just to, again, they were there by right to witness, yet things happen to them, very heartbreaking things. We've seen things happen in Uganda with Kizza Besigye, Tundu Lissu. What's going on? What do you make of what's happening across East Africa?
I think we're trying to figure out our centers. And everyone needs to everyone has to run their own race, right? So Kenyans have their issues.
Yeah.
Okay, they should really concentrate on this. So one of the things that I see this whole idea of East African solidarity. First of all, what are we even talking about here? You cannot come to justice without economic justice. You cannot come to those kind of things without having far deeper roots. No, I hate to say this, but when I saw what was happening, I was like, but we've known who our people are and the kind of state they have. They've never hidden who they are, right? The question is, where is the space for the citizens of that country without any external, because they don't need you.
They don't.
Like if you give people time, they will figure out a governance system that works for them. Works for them. You see, the problem is I cannot sit here as a Rwandan and be like, why can't Kenya be like us? No, because you're not us. What I can try to do is understand, but I cannot come and then put myself, no matter how good I am, into your struggles. Because I don't fundamentally have skin in the game. You do.
Correct.
You know, if you burn down your country, I'll go back home.
You're gonna go back to your home.
And I'll write R.I.P. You know, prayer hands.
And it's like,
right? So
it's good knowing you.
One of the things that I don't like is the idea that there's a one size fits all. Like let's Tundu Lissu and the Tanzanians. That's their country. It's their governance system. Let them figure that one out without our voices, because all we'll do is become a distraction. And I don't want it to be that way, right? It becomes a distraction. And then you're like, why are you distracting from maybe legitimate political changes? Because guess what? In politics, bad things happen. But then bad things happen and hopefully people turn it around. Because at least that's what is happening in my country. We broke our system, but we also, because I guess the world found us not consequential enough, they gave us the space to fix our system. Now imagine if everyone had come saying, okay guys, this is what you need to do.
It becomes impossible to hear your own voice.
No,
in the midst of all of that.
Yeah. So I hear, like, whether it's Boniface, whether it's Agatha, as individuals, what was done was not right. Right? We're not trying to hurt people. Would I have advised against going there? Maybe. Why? Because you are only pouring oil on already blazing flame.
Correct.
So then what's the point?
What's the point? What does it help with?
Other than make it a news thing, okay, then what? Is a state going to become more oppressive or less? Are they going to build a democracy? Or if you understand Tanzanians, they will then become even more insular. Because that's how they are.
That's who they are, and that's how.
And that's that's the socialist system. They'll become insular because they'll see the world as coming to get them.
Correct.
Throw in the fact that you're Kenyans, and historically Kenya has been the bastion of white supremacy in our region. We're thinking, oh my goodness.
I was like, here they come.
Hey, this is the CIA. And I'm not saying it's right, but
that's the reality of it. And it's people being able to fight their own fights, because listen, what does it add to their cause? What does it add to, like, fine, I understand the whole thing of supporting as a Jumuiya. Because the other thing that I've been dissecting is East Africa community is not just made up of Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. Rwanda is in it yet. What are
I
they
mean,
doing?
we're just watching.
It's like,
Yeah, because we have our own, we have problems.
You're like, please, let's deal with our own
Well, hey,
headaches.
listen, we have major problems.
Yeah.
Let us try to figure them out.
Let's figure ourselves out.
Right, especially other than going into far richer countries to agitate for.
We'll be like, go back home.
No, and we'll be like, you know what, we really should.
It's interesting just to see how we are growing and the way our problems and issues are morphing, and the people that then are tasked with a certain kind of responsibility, because you in your capacity, you're doing the work that you're doing. As now, should I call you a traveling podcast?
Well, at this point, I've only been to 2 places. 4 countries.
Let me tell you, even one is a destination. So we could call you a traveling podcast
Sure.
at this point, you
Sure.
know. So, you know, in that journey, being able to use your voice and your platform to really just speak to the issues of our continent and really give a lot more voices that kind of space, for me, something that I would appreciate. Had you told me a week ago I would be seated with you, someone from Rwanda, having this conversation, I'd be like, no, I really haven't thought about it that far. Maybe I've thought about it, but maybe thought about speaking to people in policy and all of this, but not a conversation between 2 journalists, really just doing the work.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And when you're back here, we'll have you in our hot seat.
Why are you going to put no?
You don't want
But
to join
yeah.
our breakfast show?
I
Come,
mean,
let's chat.
you know what? Again, we were talking off camera about traffic.
Yeah.
5 a.m.
We'll slot your interview time between like 8 and 9 o'clock, but you
Oh,
just need
so
to be
just
here by
right in the
7:30,
middle of
just rush
traffic.
hour,
Right, yeah.
which means you still need to wake up early.
Let me ask you my last question, because I've taken a lot of your time. What does Kenya look to you in 10 years?
Good question. It could look like 2 things. One, it could continue being the Kenya that it has always been, just refusing to deal with systems that don't work for the people, and recycling the very same people, leadership and structures and whatnot. It could be that if we don't take ownership and responsibility. And when I say we, it's myself. And we are right now for a population of 52 million. So vast majority of them are youth.
So you're probably 60 million by then.
Yeah, you know, big population, yet no movement. So still stuck fighting the very same things that we're fighting for right now. Or we could be making progress towards a Kenya that we designed. Right now is when we need to define, what does that Kenya look like? What does utopia look like? One of our artists from here, you do know Bien. He had an interview on the Breakfast Club sometime last week. And I liked something that he said. He was like, Kenya is taking the stairs. Not the elevator, the stairs. But slowly but surely we are getting there. It means progress. It means people that are committed to building this nation for the future, for the people that we're actually going to leave it for. So how that looks like is progressive work in terms of being involved and getting into spaces that allow us to shape policies that work for us, dismantling structures, however that looks like. We might not have the answers now, and as we discussed, it's going to take a full-on liberation. How that liberation looks like, again, we wait to see. But 10 years from now, we could be living in a Kenya that is well on its way to liberation. I do not foresee liberation in 10 years. We might not be liberated in a decade, but we would be on our way there. A Kenya that really allows for the youth to build it the way in which we think this country ought to be built. Right now, are we very much involved in the building of this country? Not as much as we should, but hopefully in 10 years we'll be there. And this is not just even politically. I'm looking at Kenya even as far as growth of different sectors that would really allow us to grow. When you look at culture, arts, entertainment, we are so big, we are a powerhouse. So in 10 years, we'll probably have, I don't know, we'll be having a seat at on the international scale to the degree that we see West Africa and South Africa enjoying. It's something that I see. That is a win. That is success that I foresee for our people. And in that, of course, it translates to a certain kind of growth here at home. And really continuing to be the mantle bearer and the torch bearer of East Africa in a way that's anchored in so much, in values that really help us. Again, 10 years is a very short time, as we've seen. Can you imagine COVID was what? 2020?
2020, yeah.
Because now this is the
Fifth year.
Fifth year. And so much could happen, yet so much could not happen. But it all depends on the willingness of the people.
So you've given me two options, though.
Yeah.
So which one do you think will come to pass?
Hard. It's hard for me to predict, especially with where we are right now. I feel like we are at a tipping point where we can make a very, very big decision. So if you ask me this question 1 year from now, which I hope we can manage to have a sit, I might have an answer for you. But right now we are at a tipping point and a very crucial point in this country, that if we do the things that need to be done, then option B that I've pointed, our way to liberation, is where we'll be heading. But right now, what I feel strongly in my soul is option B, because I'm an optimist.
And on that,
and I speak to the optimism of this country. So, yeah.
And on that optimistic tone, I just want to thank you so much for spending your evening with us.
Thank you.
It was fun. It was important, and it gave me a sense of what does a Kenyan of a certain age, of a certain demographic, think about their future, about their present, and about their region. So, Fellaris, thank you so much for joining me on the long form. I hope you enjoyed it.
I had an amazing time. Listen, time flies when you're having fun. And this was fun. And hopefully the next time I'll see you in Kigali.
Karibu-san.
Thank you. Host me there. Actually, this year I have to be in Kigali before the end of this year. And when I'm there, I'll look for you.
Please do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to your audience, who I know are amazing.
And thank you to the Kenyans for having us.
May they treat you well. I hope they've been treating you well.
I've not really had a chance to meet any.
Yeah?
I've just been working and then going back home.
Back, relaxing, then.
And then getting ready for.
Tomorrow is a public holiday.
I have some interviews.
Oh goodness. Are you enjoying the food? Is it
I have not eaten any Kenyan food yet.
You've just eaten Rwandese food?
I'm living with a friend of mine who's Rwandan.
Ah, there we go.
but today I had for lunch we had ugali, sukuma wiki, and beef.
Ooh, how was that?
It was fine.
It's a classic Kenyan meal.
Yeah. No, literally, I opened it because like their cook is Kenyan. So I saw it. I laughed. I was like, this is Kenya.
I'm happy your first Kenyan meal was ugali, because there's nothing that speaks to Kenya more than ugali, skuma, and nyama. Nyama for those that are able to afford, but ugali skuma speaks to the very core of a lot of Kenyans. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Fun. Do we shake hands?
Sure, why not? There you go.
It's so formal.
And that's a wrap for this week's episode. Thank you so much for sticking with us until the very end. I'd actually love to hear your thoughts on today's conversation.